is celebrated in, this is the first week of August.
August. Yes.
Okay. Some terminologies that you'll learn as we have this conversation today. EBF. This is exclusive breastfeeding. BFCI. And this means Baby Friendly Community Initiative. There's some more, I'll tell you. Just let's talk about this.
Okay.
When it comes to breastfeeding, I mean, every community in the world, almost every community in the world basically knows what breastfeeding is, and it's an expectation of every mother. When you get a baby, you breastfeed the baby for a while, and then you get to a point where you cease breastfeeding. Now, the conversation around the world has always been: at what point do you stop breastfeeding? Is it exclusive breastfeeding? Are you mixing breastfeeding with other means of nutrition? And then now when it comes to, what is it?
Nothing. I'm listening to you.
When it comes to the
weaning,
that's it. Huh?
Seems like you're struggling here.
When it comes to,
It seems like you're struggling.
he knew what it was, but it's not something that comes easily to our minds.
All right. So, can I help you a little bit?
Please help us a
lot.
bit.
So, I mean, if we're looking at certain times, there was a time that things shifted a little bit, right? And it was natural that women would breastfeed their children. It was because that was what the option was. But as time changed, the formula-based feeding then came into, whereby companies now got into the whole idea of creating or manufacturing formula that babies could, because there were very many mothers then who were not able to produce their own milk or not produce adequate amounts of milk that the baby needed. Further research was done by the World Health Organization, organizations like UNICEF, governments, and just even from medical practitioners, and realized that actually the best nutrition that a baby could have was that he or she got from their mother through breast milk. So then the campaign started again, whereby
why was it considered the best?
Because it was natural, and there were certain, I want to call them ingredients in the mother's milk, that you could not really replicate anywhere.
Like?
So, for example, the first milk that a baby gets from its mother, the colostrum, gave this baby every nutrient that they needed to be able to start off their life in terms of building their immunity, in terms of adequate hydration, and the vitamins and minerals that they needed to start off. Okay? So, and then to go on and say that mother to baby, it was adequate. And if they continued, they would find that they were able to build their immunity, stop them from getting certain diseases. The science behind it showed that there were certain diseases that a baby was less likely to get if they were on EBF. Okay? So this whole clamor, exclusive breastfeeding, this whole clamor and this whole awareness and this campaign drive then took on center stage for the longest time. And more and more then were pun intended, latched on to the idea that this actually would work. Times then changed after that, whereby more women, and then we're getting towards the 2000s now, where more women actually came to the realization, all right, this is great, I can have a baby, but I must go back to work. My career then again takes center stage. How am I going to be able to do this? And then we had the whole campaign of, mother breastfeeding friendly offices and more. And then formula companies came back, whereby they were able to, as close as possible, mimic a formula to as close as possible to breast milk that they could, so that mothers then did not have to go through the labor of pumping milk and all of this and sending and then having to remain at home or being incapacitated in any way so that they could work. Okay, but we've seen from the World Health Organization, even in this 1 week, and again, the calls have been renewed to say this is actually the best option. This is actually the best option, and they've been able to somehow link it even to environment, link it to say that use the natural forms, and as you look at me like that, I mean, we'll get somebody who will give us more information about this, but link it even to environment and say it actually is the safest form of nutrition for children, not just for human beings, but also for the environment.
What does environment come in?
wait.
That is now when we
Environment is trees and...
No. I want this explained.
That, I'm
Breast
telling you, there's
milk
somebody.
environment, or
There's
we
not
wait for
me.
someone else to-
So
Okay, but let me ask the question. Since you are the champion that I have up close and can speak candidly to me, so the period when children are actually required, or WHO, UNICEF, and other networks that deal with children recommend, is 6 months.
yes, exclusively.
Why 6 months? Why not 4? Why not 10?
Because at 6 months, there's certain things, what you call the milestones that happens within a child's body. So now the digestive tract is now more or less fully developed, and they're able to now take on mastification, where now their teeth have started to develop and they can actually begin to chew. And so it's at that time that you want to begin to start introducing more solid forms of food. So it's nature plus milestones that are coupled one another, and then you can actually move forward. Before that, the body is not able to take it in, and it actually is enough, more than enough in terms of adequacy, this breast milk.
Quite aside from the interference, or as those who understand this line of work would say, negative marketing of these substitutes. Okay, what is it that actually hinders mothers, even in the absence of this? Because if you look at most rural areas, I do not think that this marketing of substitutes plays a very big role in whether the mothers breastfeed their children or not. So what are these the things that could prevent them from ensuring that this exclusive breastfeeding is actually actualized?
Maybe he
Well, what would it be? Poverty?
It could be many things, and maybe this is where the experts ought to come in and
So
tell
let's
us.
bring in the expert. James Njiru works for Save the Children, and he's a nutrition specialist. He's joining us now on the line. James, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. You've had the introduction to the topic and what we are saying. The world has marked the World Breastfeeding Day, and we're talking about exclusive breastfeeding. Maybe we just get straight into that question that C.T. Muga has just raised. What is it that would make mothers, especially in the not urban areas, so in the rural areas, not continue with exclusive breastfeeding for the stipulated time?
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question. There are several reasons that could lead to mothers not being able to practice exclusive breastfeeding. One, mothers need to have that confidence that they have enough milk to breastfeed their babies for the 6 months without giving anything else. So that confidence comes with a lot of support. They will require support from their immediate people like spouse, and then the family. They will require support from the community. All right. They also need to do that when they're in an environment that is protected. And this way now we bring in the policy framework and legal frameworks that protect mothers and shield mothers from undue influence that could lead them to move away from breastfeeding.
What
there are
would that
several reasons.
undue? Can I just jump in there and ask, what would this undue influence be that would stop mothers from breastfeeding?
One thing that is well documented is the undue influence by the industry, who are very good and have financial muscle to advertise. You know, advertising has been shown to have influence on how people perceive things. So if mothers are not shielded from that undue influence, because most of the time industry would want to increase their sales, and therefore if allowed, they would go miles into reaching out to mothers, reaching out to general public, and promoting their product. So that undue influence through marketing has been shown to impact negatively on the decision of the mothers to breastfeed.
In Kenya, what
other thing that
percentage
could
of
come
mothers
along-
would you say are unduly influenced by this sort of marketing?
Come again, sorry?
I'm saying in Kenya, what percentage of mothers would you say are influenced by this negative marketing?
Okay, assessments have been conducted, especially in Kenya, to see the magnitude of advertising and the magnitude that has on mothers' decision. But what I can tell you is that we have significant mothers, especially in the urban settings, who are exposed to this type of influence. And mothers in the urban settings, and even exclusive breastfeeding rates in urban compared to rural is higher than urban, and that is attributed to the influence. What we found is that in KDHS, number of mothers who have come into contact with the promotion activities was put at 3%, but that is higher. If you go to health workers, because when we are looking at this, there are different ways of promotion. It could be targeting health workers, who in return, health workers now get to
influence the mothers.
To influence the mothers. That's one way. The other thing could be through the health system, like health facilities. We have seen instances where industries donate these products, like infant formula and the like. We have seen instances where industries sponsor health workers into conferences and also into trips that are funded. So all those elements, then health workers get to influence how mothers access this information. But luckily, I think in Kenya, the policy framework is good. We have adequate policies and legislation that shield that. The question is, have we implemented that to the full? And the answer is no. We still have a lot of work.
But at the same time, it sounds like the policy is working on shielding what you're calling the negative marketing instead of promoting the benefits of exclusive breastfeeding. So, for instance, nutritionists such as yourself and the others who the mothers will come into contact with, the healthcare workers, those ones should be the government's main advocates for exclusive breastfeeding. But by the time you're saying that those companies, the private sector has reached out to them and has been able to convert them into their own brand ambassadors, this is a failure of government to do its job.
I would say exactly. The biggest role that we all need to do is to promote benefits of breastfeeding. And that has been happening. If you look at the data, for example, in 2003, the proportion of mothers who practice exclusive breastfeeding was 3%. It was barely 3%. And now, as we speak, according to KDHS 2014-2015, we are at 61%. So there has been progressive improvement, and this is as a result of the strategies and the work that has been done over the years. So, but we are seeing we still have a lot to do, and the ministry, like I've said, has set the environment in which that they have demonstrated the intention that they want the best for the children and mothers.
Do we have a legal framework that supports what you're saying?
Yes, we have several policies. We have maternal, infant, and young child nutrition policy and strategy that government has put out there to guide how we implement these interventions. We also have an Act of Parliament, Breast Milk Substitutes Regulation and Control Act of 2012, and we also have Health Act that has provisions on how to protect breastfeeding. So we also have recently enacted workplace support that provides for all facility organizations or workplaces required to set up a place where mothers can breastfeed or they can nurse their babies, or they could take breaks to go and express breast milk. So I believe legal framework is available now. What is really needed to be done is to implement these interventions.
What needs to happen so that these interventions can be implemented? Like you've just explained, I mean, we've got policy, we've got strategy, we've got laws that back up the policy and the strategy. And we have officers who came up with the policies and strategies in the government who obviously know the need to do this. So where is the gap?
Exactly. Like I started by saying, for mothers to breastfeed successfully, there are several things. And I think in the past, I know you and me have heard people saying breastfeeding is free and it can happen naturally. But what we have also has been documented is that mothers require a lot of support to be able to breastfeed successfully. One, for example, when a mother is breastfeeding, there are things that go on within her body for her to be able to breastfeed successfully. For example, the way the mother attaches the baby to the breast, the way the mother positions the baby, it can affect the way the baby suckles. So it requires some skilled support for the mother to understand these principles. And that's why now we have had a lot of training of health workers, because those are the people who primarily interact with the mothers at that point of delivery, or even before delivery or during the antenatal clinic. So mother need to be given this information. And then during delivery, the mother need to be supported to initiate breastfeeding within 1 hour. So when you can see when that practical support lacks, then you can believe me, it's not that easy. When the mother doesn't have that information, she will not know that this is the best for the baby.
So training has happened for the healthcare workers, and this has already been documented that this is something that needs to be done. So I'm still asking, so where is the gap? Why are these things not happening and giving us the results we want?
Okay. Like you say, yes, trainings have happened, but we haven't trained all the health workers who come into contact with the mothers. We still have new health workers who are being employed, and especially now with the health is devolved, so counties are employing health workers who are new, who require this skill. Then the other thing is that we still have work to inform mothers, to give that information so that all mothers get that information at the right time. So that is not optimal. Like, we haven't been able to reach all mothers.
What percentage of mothers have you reached to date?
Well, that's an important question. When we conduct assessments at population level, we have been able to establish that majority of mothers have the information. For example, they have the general information that they need to exclusively breastfeed for 6 months. But to translate that into action, you see, like over 80% of mothers, when we do assessments, say, yes, we are supposed to breastfeed for 6 months without giving anything else. But translating that into practice, we see only 61 mothers now are exclusive breastfeeding. You see, there is a gap. So that difference tells you that in addition to just getting the information, there are many other things that need to go to the mother. So that's where we are in terms of statistics.
Okay, I'm hearing you talk about support, and it's clear that the support that we're looking at, for me, unless you could say otherwise, comes when we're looking at women who are in careers that need that kind of support, whereby they need to be able to breastfeed their children in a work setting. And we know that at the legislative level, we've seen quite a lot that has been done, or a lot that has been asked for in terms of that support. Do you see that with the bill that has come from the current chair of the Health Committee now, do we see that that would be translated into some of the support that you're talking about now, where we're talking about, lactation rooms for mothers in the corporate sector or even in any kind of office. If that comes into law, does that then translate to some of the support that you're talking about?
Well, that's a good question. Like we have said, having policies and legislation is one thing, but translating that into practice is another different thing. So what we have seen is that it's very good that there's now law that will demand corporate and even organizations to provide that environment that the mother or the working mother requires. So, but that is not enough. So what we need is actually to make sure that those lactation centers or places for breastfeeding have been supported by several things. One, the mothers also need to get those breaks off their desk. For example, if it's in the formal sector, and if it is in the informal sector, we need a replica of that mothers need time off to go and either express or breastfeed the babies. We have seen corporates that have even included creches into their places that mothers can bring their babies and they could take breaks and go and breastfeed. That is what is required to go over and above just providing a room. So I agree that has the potential to translate and increase the proportion of mothers who are exclusive breastfeeding even when they return to work, because that's largely for the formally employed women face a lot of challenges when they go back to work at 3 months and they're supposed to exclusively breastfeed for 6 months. Then if that space is not supported by friendly HR policies and also practical support within the organization, then even with the room, then it may not be adequate.
Okay. So this is support clearly that's coming for women in the corporate sector. What kind of support, and you may have mentioned this in passing, but what kind of support then are we looking for women in the informal sector or women in rural areas where we're still looking at breastfeeding as something that carries such a huge weight of import? What support are you looking then for, or should governments and countries be looking for women across board regardless? Because the assumption is that if you're in the informal sector, you have a little bit more time, or that you're getting the psychosocial or counseling support that you need. So what then is important for women outside of the corporate sector when it comes to breastfeeding and everything else that comes along with it?
Wow, that's a big question, and it's the right conversation that we should be having even as a nation and globally. Yeah, like you have said, at least there are some framework that now protect the formal employed women in the formal sector. But in the Juakali and even in the rural, where the mother wakes up in the morning very early, goes to the farm or go to the day-to-day activities, maybe could be working in their own farms or could be working for other people in those farms, then at the moment, what we have been working around is to sensitize the communities, educate the communities and the household that this mother, first of all, even before we look at the government policies and frameworks, require the support at home. So that's where now the man, for example, comes in. Like, you need to take up some of these roles that the mother is supposed to do, so that the mother has time to breastfeed. I think our mothers in Kenya, a study showed that the workload is one of the major challenges, because they have so many things they need to do, and they actually don't have.
They don't get the support from their partners or from anybody else.
Yes. So the support here starts right in the house.
Yeah.
Like, the man needs to take up some roles so that at least the mother can breastfeed. The other thing is providing. I think you will agree that if the mother has worries and fears that she will not have something to eat in the next meal, then that worry is big enough to stress her.
Impact.
So the man needs to provide and make sure that financial stresses are addressed. So other than that, the community surrounding, for example, if we have communities that have right education, right information, and they are able to protect breastfeeding mothers in different ways. For example, if you are the person providing casual labor and you have a breastfeeding woman, what can you do to that? Maybe allow them to come if they're supposed to come at 8, allow them to come at 10, do their work, and then still get the money that they need. So there is a lot that needs to be done. For example, if it is in the churches or in the market, so what can community do? Can it be sensitive to the mothers who are breastfeeding? We have seen even in the transport sector, when a mother with a baby who is breastfeeding gets into a matatu, what happens? Who gets precedence? So if we can educate the community around this, then the mothers could have the right environment and be supported and feel that they are supported. Then finally, I think mothers need to feel proud to breastfeed. We still have proportion of mothers, and especially the young mothers, who still think breastfeeding is primitive. I mean, like it's not the right thing to do. So you will see them being very happy to maybe expose or use their breasts for other reasons, but they feel shy to breastfeed in public. So those are the things that we need to continue doing. That breastfeeding and the breast primarily are for feeding the baby. So they need to feel proud, even in public, even in the banking sector, even in halls and churches, to remove breast and feed the baby comfortably and proudly. So that is what we need.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. Clearly, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but also realizing the steps that need to be taken definitely is one step in the right direction. So we're very happy that we could have this conversation. And as we continue to talk about this and look at the very many important things that need to be done, it's great to have as many hats thrown into the circle as possible.
James Njiru, thank you very much for your for agreeing to speak to us today. And of course, we hope that we can continue this conversation also in coming days as well.
Exactly. I will be very happy. And thank you so much for providing this platform. And I believe we will continue this conversation. So this week has been the World Breastfeeding Week, and we really want to continue informing people and the importance of breastfeeding and what needs to be done for us to have successful breastfeeding.
Asante sana.